round two because of we're going to record it this time, and again I would like to give credit to High Priestess Kamara for allowing and sharing this lesson that was prepared by her father High Cheik Ibn Hasin. Okay, so all credit goes to her, and in her effort in working with us in combining this movement into togetherness and strength and unity. There's strength. So with that idea, and we've been talking and dealing with her, and she's highly expressed, sharing, because we are only few of us actively in the planet, family. So we need to work together. So in that effort, and she shared some what she has, some of the teachings and all the Holy Family. So this is, again, I want to give credit to her and to her father who prepared this lesson, preserved this lesson for us, and I'll thank her for sharing. So we're just going to go at it. And the title is The Afro-Americans' Lack of Direction and Purpose. Right? The Afro-Americans' lack of direction and purpose. Fine, yes. So with that, I'm just going to go into it. When the slave marts had become glutted and chattel slavery was more expensive than profitable, the various methods of emancipation were put into operation. The heathens outside of Africa were now considered saved and civilized. In this way, he was again a source of profit to his lord and conqueror. Thus, the Negroes, quote unquote, outside of Africa were relegated to the lowest social status in the lands of their lords and masters. The Asiatic was lords and divine kings occupied the cities and fields that the heathens, quote unquote, inside of Africa had deserted for the peace and safety or the jungle vastness. Okay. The jungle blacks now felt secure. He was safely hidden away behind the mighty rivers, lofty mountains, parching deserts, impenetrable forests, and the ferocious beasts. He had found a new heaven, a new land of delights to abide therein forever. But here, goods that the saved infidels outside of Africa produced for their lords. So peaceful penetration was invented. In his markets, the conquerors began a mad scramble in the jungle. So they laid down their swords, guns, chains, and picked up their sacred books, and into the jungle they went as missionaries with Bibles, Quran, Talmud, and the Veda. He must be found and persuaded to believe. Africans were then ushered into all kinds of churches, temples, mosques, and lodges, so that his unsaved brothers in the homeland could be told of the good news, how the saved had embraced the faith. When you say missionary, how they went as missionary, so funny, because yesterday I shared this information on my Facebook, and the content was missionaries, high school drop-off missionaries make more money in Africa than they would make in here. So an average missionary will get paid $66,000 to go to Africa and preach and missionary work. Well, the same, if she was in the United States, that missionary would have made 3 times less so a high school dropout or a high school finish would make probably 20,000 in here, but as a missionary, if she go to the Asia, if she go to Africa, she will make $66,000 a year. Instead of making $21,000 as any high school graduate. So it's a big business in a way, you know. And in fact, the magazine was saying a doctor in Africa, in Uganda, his salary is $20,000 a year. A doctor, a missionary makes $66,000 with no qualification. All she has to do is Jesus loves you. That's it. Wow. And look beautiful and cute and go to the African villages, impress the children. They got the white image. She is Mary, you know, so she pretend, and the priest pretend like he's Jesus, and they feed the, you know what, and they teach them about the Christian culture.
Yes.
So I thought, wow, so the same thing. So they went as missionaries with their Bibles, Qurans, Talmud, and Veda. He must be persuaded, he must be found and persuaded to believe. Then it says Africa were then ushered into all kinds of churches, temples, mosques, lodges, so that his unsaved brother in the homeland could be told of the good news. See? You know? See black people in America? We went to Africa and told the good news too. We converted you brothers in Africa. You know? But, he said, but the Negroes embracing his conqueror's faith was more an act of diplomacy than that of a faith. It's logical. It's logical to assume that a people cannot really believe in a faith nor be internally loyal to any system unless it be one of their own invention. Culture, growing of their own ideals, struggles and achievements. So no matter how much they try to convince us, or we try to even accept that it's not going to work, because it did not come from us. When we create our own culture based on our own philosophy, our own way of life, then we will die for that. And we will, you see? Otherwise, a people at their base can only try or pretend to believe or be loyal, even if they do go through the motions out of coercion and fear. It's not, right? Since we did not create it, we would just go like, yeah, we just go along with their culture. All right? The black man's excessive praying, shouting, singing, and mourning has merely been a screen behind which was hidden his secret thoughts, feelings, and doubts. Belief is a quality that the black man has not had for several thousands of years. The ring around the rosy attics of the thousand black man worshippers were merely so much make-believe, whereby they fooled the thousand Christian and politicians into believing that their thoughts were only of pearly gates, feather wings angels, and a heavenly milk and honey. But they were often full of gin and corn liquor, ham and egg, fine clothes, illicit love, and the ballot box. Diplomacy is inherent in the black man. When it comes to self-preservation and mere hanging on, he surpasses anything else in this world. That is one game he knows how to play, even if his reward for it are only crumbs and rags. And this, I mean, the teaching is so precise, you know. That's what I said, you know, he will continue to play the game with every divine bride and worldly harlot that comes along until he is able to regain his lost prestige. Yes, that is the instinctive secret that is at the back of the black man's mind. All over the world where you find black people, we know something, our instincts tell us that we've been great, we ruled this planet for 50,000 years, you know. We had that, but we just cannot, you know, but we have that instinct. Something is not right, okay? He said that is the instinct, that is the instinctive secret that is at the back of the black man's mind. Once, he said, once in those days, in ancient days, he believed in God in his own way and had a fanatical faith in himself. Wow. Once we believed in God, in Lillahi, in our own way, in our own way. And he said, we had a fanatical faith in himself, in ourselves. That's why when you go to the temple, you see our gods and goddesses grand. Amen, you know, thoughts. That's us. We're worshiping ourselves. We were in love with ourselves. How we portray our woman. We were in love with our self-image. We respect ourselves. We loved ourselves. See? He said, once in those days he believed in God in his own way and had a fanatical faith in himself. Today, the black man has no faith in himself, nor in God, nor in one another. For several thousands of years, the black man married and divorced the heavenly brides and the worldly harlots, who's the popular faith, you know, the other, was even increasing tempo up until the last World War. With the bursting of that brotherhood, quote-unquote, bubble, he handed a bill of divorcement to the latest of his divine wives, the Church of Christ. He never enjoyed much happiness with any of his wives, terrestrial or celestial, since he was uprooted and torn away from his own culture many centuries ago. They have uprooted us from that high culture where we ruled the planet for 50,000. They uprooted us from that culture, yeah? And torn away from his own many culture many centuries ago. The blandishments, intriguing smiles, the voluptuous caresses of the false helpmeets only made him shed tears of anxiety which welled up from the bottom of his smarting and doubting soul. All the while, from his mouth poured a tide, rapturous declaration of internal love for each wife in turn. He was often bigamous in this process, and both he and they always played the cheating game. Whether the black man will go courting next, nobody knows. But it is rumored that he is now flirting with Mrs. Soviet. It's our communist party back in the days, I guess. You know, a lot of black people joining communism. They think this communism will solve in the 40s, I guess. You know, it was even in my country, Ethiopia, communism. You know, we got Lenin, Marxism, and all his ecclesiastical concubines and secular courtesans have betrayed him into slavery, segregation, discrimination, and slaughter, and probably will continue to do until he returns to his own faithful wife or select one from among the daughters of his own tribe. Culture of our own. Fahami is a peculiar culture. It was brought to us. Either we take our own culture or select from one of African cultures. A culture of his own, peculiar to himself. Based on this new culture, the Holy Family Rasul brought us is ancestor worship. not only just any ancestor, the noble and the righteous ones. We worship and we invoke them daily. Like I shared with you that day, that lady was saying, oh man, she made an altar for all her dead relatives, and she said the altar came and there was a lot of spirit that was coming, and I said, no, this new understanding of ancestor worship is we only call upon those saints, those those who have cultivated themselves. You don't just call on anybody of your family. No. You know, that's what I was like. No, you don't call on Uncle Ray, Lady B and stuff. No, we ain't gonna call her, We only call on those ancestors who have cultivated themselves, who have done great things to the race, who have died for the cause of the race, Those who are noble saints that were mentioned in our gospel, there are a whole lot of Holy Family mentioned. You call upon them, you make altars for them, You think about them, you invoke their name daily, A culture of his own. He has been so handpicked. He is not capable of a sustained belief nor disbelief in anything. Back to that lecture again, the mixed multitude. We're going to be a case for the police, Not a case for this, not for culture, not philosophy, but he said it will be a case for the police. He has pretended to forget the tortures his soul has suffered, but like the proverbial elephant, his memory is good, and his vivid memory of all that has gone before has made him a hybrid in faith. Just as concubinage has made him a hybrid in race. We have started that mixing. We have started that mixing the Greeks into our own. That was the beginning of our falling away, Because we start mixing, we start neglecting our woman, and start concubine. We start concubines and stuff. And since he is not strong in any belief in any of the popular religions, and he has no strong disbelief in supernaturalism, he is a real infidel. The atheist feels sure and has no worries, no doubts about his soul, so his mind is free. But the former and the latter have plenty of energy to put into constructive and original thinking. The black man comes under neither of these classifications and is not sure of anything. So even like I said, even when you see those Africans leaving Africa, trying to go into the boat, trying to go to Spain, so many have died in the Mediterranean. They have completely no faith in ourselves. So we would rather go to another European or slave masters or die trying. A lot have died, even so sadly. Of course, he said, everyone else know that organized religions, political and commercial line covered the earth like a blanket of snow. The westernized black did not. He is just now finding this out, and his perplexity is complete. For one thing, the black man's infidelity has made him immeasurably wise as to the weaknesses of most of the so-called inspired religions and just governments. He has stood by for thousands of years and watched them rise up with necromancy and sword, cajoling and compelling, and has seen one and all of them lapse again into heathenism, idolatry, and barbarity, of which the black man himself had been accused. Moreover, he has witnessed the births and deaths of several capitalist governments, communistic commonwealths, leagues of nations, and scores of brotherhood and secret societies. The apparent futility of it all makes him appear as adamant as the Sphinx. Nations should not change their gods, rather they have new ones by creation or adoption. Each nation is joined to its own ideals, and given time and opportunity, they return to their own ideals. Their affections are passionately set in their own ways of life, and these date back to their beginnings. Okay, culture is a way of our life from our beginning to the end, to our end. They believed in improvements, but these must be made in their own way. It is moronic frailty for one race to harm epithets or infidelity at another, in which he refuses to leave off their own idols for the idols of the others. To be a pagan or an infidel after this manner of accusation is truly a mark of distinction. The black man does not doubt. Deep down in his heart of hearts, he simply does not believe. He demands to be shown, but the showers have not arrived. Hence the show me state. St. Louis is saying, if you change the people of St. Louis, you can change the planet, right? That's why. Because St. Louis is the show me state. They demand proof. Show me. Don't talk about it. Show me. And that's why it's too hard to convince them in a way. Bible reading to excess has contributed greatly to the black man's disbelief. Speaking of the black man, the Bible sounds to him more like the voice of the Ku Klux Klan or the skinheads and the Armada sword than it does that of a holy word. Certain portion of the Bible makes the black man feel that he has been chosen as the scapegoat of religion, ethics, and culture. He finds that it opens up casting a well-known curses upon Canaan and wishing for him eternal servitude. Moses barred flat-nosed men from the synagogue, but loves Ethiopian women. He listens to he listened to what Ezekiel, son of Buzi, says to the black man, and I quote, "In that day shall messengers go forth for me in ship to make the careless Ethiopians afraid, and great pain shall come upon them." End of quote. Isaiah cries out, "I am against you, I am against you, Ethiopia, woe unto you." And Jehovah, Israel's God, held a great light, the sun, all night, one night, while Joshua painted Mount Gideon, and the valley Elon red was black blood. Nor does he fare any better throughout the New Testament. Jesus called a black woman a dog. A black person is compelled to bear the cross of Christ. And Paul and the Holy Ghost segregates from the niggers. Thus, the black man feels that he is the hated target of all the biblical venom. And he is beginning to feel that all religions are in battle array against him, either secretly or openly. The universities in the land of his adoption do condescend to confirm degrees upon him at intervals. There the matter seems to rest. Like Cheikh said, as long as you're a good black man, money, you're good. You don't make trouble, you're good, you know. Ethically rigid examination and close scrutiny. That's what I said. This paper is a close scrutiny. And he said, ethically rigid examination and close scrutiny reveals that blacks have been blinded by illusions for several thousands of years. One great illusion is that well-known ho-hum, universal brotherhood. This easily propagated deception that began before the days of Abraham and came to full bloom with the advent of Moses. The black man began early to march in these humble processions, intoxicated by loud preachments and happy promises, diluted by the hypnotic tempo of the marching feet. He skipped onto the tempo of these serene bands for ages before he began to slacken his perceptuous pace. And he has slackened his pace considerably. 20 years ago, he was in a gallop. 10 years ago, he slowed to a trot. Now, he is just mopping along and trying hard to think. He has learned that the odium attaches not to idolatry, but to those to whose idolatry that is being discussed. He was told that behind his sphinxes, statues, banners, coins, and talismans stood the behooved Lucifer with spits of blazing brimstone. But he soon was asked to pay reverence to the statues of his conquerors in all of the chief cities of the world: Rome, London, Paris, Moscow, and New York. And to look upon the statue of the Jewish prophet as the very grafter himself. So he now knows that idolatry has been and will probably always be a revered institution. Though it's not called idolatry these days, it's called the sculpture's art. You know, in our gospel, you know, they know it not, but they're all idolaters, you know. Whether you have the picture, you have a statue, they're all idolaters. And he say, since they are, everybody's afraid, now the Holy Father say, I will say it. I will say it. You know, and he said, yeah. We went to the art museum, you see all those sculptures, those are idolatries. But our sphinx, our statues are idolatry, you know, pagan. Look at them, African pagans. Look at, you know, no, but theirs not, okay? An educated black man recently told me that he could prove that the marks of the world's progress were the milestone of idolatry and paganism. He said that Isis, the national goddesses of the ancient Egyptians, and that of Ashtoreth, the national goddesses of the ancient Babylonians, were no more than pagan goddesses, as is the American goddesses, the Statue of Liberty. She's up there. That is their goddesses up there, you know. They call it the Statue of Liberty. He said that the ancient temples of Africa and Asia were no more symbolic of paganism than the large halls of this day and time. Whenever you go, they have lodges, you know. He pointed out that the talisman was the forerunner of the dollar. That in the old days, a talisman was a piece of metal that produced magical effects. and that a dollar does the same thing now. I was listening to this guy, and one day, and he's into the occult, he was like, if you really want to hurt, go burn some dollar, He said that dollar is a talisman, it's a magical thing. So when you burn it, you can hurt those. I'm like, wow. Something to think about, like, wow, But in here, the teaching says the dollar is just a magical paper. It's a talisman. It has some magic behind it. And that's why it's running this planet. Crazy, That the dollar does the same thing now. That the Sphinx of Egypt is the work of pagans. So too are the stone memorials of today, and that culture is an offshoot from religion. All of which goes to show that the ignoramus is beginning to think. The vagabond is turning his thoughts homeward, and the doctor is arriving at certain conclusions. Our international vagabond is one not by choice, but by force of circumstances. He has tried earnestly to believe, but believe he simply could not. His superior instinct has made him the champion diplomat of the earth. His judgment may be faulty, but his instincts are supreme. This superior instinct has held his soul in a leash and prevented him from swallowing the bait and hook of all the inspired hukum of the last 6,000 years. Unwittingly, he has been an unbeliever since the days of Moses, but he ever insists that he is a true believer in one or other of the popular faiths. Affirmations from force of habit. He will continue to join heart and soul anything that comes along, promising him surcease from his sorrows, but he will not truly be heart and soul in them. He will again employ his diplomacy of joining, watching, waiting until the real thing comes along. Like our Imam say, the superficial for the real culture divine. Maybe deep in our instinct, maybe we are waiting for that real thing to come up, because we know how the superficial faith is not going to last. Alright? He will again employ his diplomacy of joining, watching, waiting until the real thing comes along. Until then, out of fairness to himself, he can only play the hypocrite, the pretender. The black man has learned not to blush anymore when someone calls him a pagan or an infidel. He has learned that a son of God is a saint, like a sinner must eat. He has also learned that there is not one of the accepted or inspired Bibles that does not proscribe against the black man in some way. He is already saying that Russian communism is in itself a botanical religion and is the first real attempt in the Scythians to construct from their own mentality a culture of their own. Scythians are those people that moved into Iran, into Russia from Iran and Iraq, and they became Russians after thousands of years of staying. Okay? So if they to construct from their own mentality a culture of their own, he knows that the Russian, like himself, is one of those who tried hard to believe a strange creed. In matters of religions, he gloats over the fact that he has successfully evaded all of the divine snares that have been set for his soul since the days of Abraham and Moses. While not fully believing in any one of the non-African religions, the Ethiopic has successfully fooled the rest of the world into believing that he had believed. He has joked and hoodwinked all of the prophets from Moses to Jesus and Muhammad. He has, with apparent gusto, embraced and adopted every creed under the sun since the heydays of paganism. But he has not adapted himself fully to any one of them. One squad of black men will blandly inform you that they are black Jews. Another squad will solemnly declare that they are Hindus. While still another Congress will swear that they believe in Jesus Christ. While another group claim to be Buddhist or Mohammedans. But scratch any one of them and you will find the eternal Ethiopian. What is the solution? See, what is the solution of the black man's problem? A culture of his own should come very near to solving that problem. And the freed Ethiopic being encouraged along these lines by his brothers, instead of their trying to Christianize him, his past would not have entailed the present toll of a racial strife. Had the freedmen and women been taught to emulate their own celebrities, the whites would not now have such a hard time trying to shake off the persona non grata whom he has mistrained all too well. The white man has made himself the honey and the black man the bee, and now he is reaping what he sowed. In his mad anxiety to impress his vaunted superiority over the black man, the white man has acted with far too much zeal. Were this not so, there would have been fewer cries of rape by the southern ladies. Black women would not now be so crazy for white men. In effect, the whites say to the blacks, "Follow me and stay in your place," all at the same time. Obviously, this cannot be done. The whites will probably have to practice amalgamation, mix or sum together, or blend in with the white openly, or help the black man along the path. The latter along the path of black culture, along the path of farming. They must help us and help us with this Fahani movement if we're going to solve this problem. The latter would seem the most humane thing to do. The black man, baited along as he was now being done, can only continue to be a source of constant irritation to the whites and to himself. Several times have the black man tried to do their own thinking, only to be circumvented by the egotistical whites, as certain black bishops and professors testify. Civilized greed has robbed the black man of his industrial incentive, and now he is told to help himself. Civilized religion has nailed him to the cross of superstition, and he is mockingly told to get down. Civilized culture has fed him on the crumbs from its tables, and now it's wonder why he can't think. Civilized amusement has increased the fickleness in him, and now his vanity is wondered at. Civilized fashion mongers put him on parade and then withdrew to laugh at it. Perplexity aplenty for these sons of Ham. The Ethiopian at home and abroad now know that in matters of economics, civil and secular, he is well known as an ignoramus, having in hundreds of years produced only a handful of men and women who seemed able to grasp mentally his economic plight. the black man of the world has learned too heavily upon the, the black man of the world has leaned too heavily upon the placid arms of the cultures of their respective masters. He has spent far too much of his precious time and money chasing the elusive rainbows that hallow the cultures of other peoples, in which they have not one of the black man or Ethiopian dignity, culture, nor protection. The time has come when his conquerors themselves must overhaul their own outworn educational and economic systems. And that's exactly what they are doing right now. They are going into the digital age. That means no more printed money. They go into tokens, bitcoins, XRPs. They are heading to that direction. They are changing their economic. Instead of printing money, it's going to be digital money now. So they are changing the economy and the education systems right now. If as a result of the frailties in their own cultures, the educators and economists of the leading nations of the world must spew out of their own mouths 85% of their cultural embracings. See, now they are turning 85% of their old way of thinking right now, including how people exchange energies. With instead of dollars, now they're going digital and other economy. Even their food, they're going back to the organic way of culture, you know. They're going back, they are re-evaluating there and they are going back, okay? Back to nature movement right now. There's a lot of spend time with nature, back to nature movements, right? 85% of their cultural embracing how the black man, intoxicated by these lies, is expected to walk nobody can see. So if they are changing into the digital and we are still talking with paper money, well, what's going to happen to us? Right? Nobody can see. But he still longs to become united by amalgamation with his master and to lose his identity in him, despite his knowledge that his presence is not wanted. We are trying our best to have a white woman. As soon as we become successful, we go after the work, you know. We will move on to the, better live our own and go to another, live in Europe, live Africa. And as soon as he got the money, he will send his children to educated other nations, you know. Okay, but he still longs to become united by amalgamation with his master and to lose his identity in him, despite his knowledge that his presence is not wanted. The black man has depended mostly on his back for his sustenance. That era is swiftly passing. Organized labor is often hostile towards him. The labor markets of the world are glutted, and unemployment is worldwide. China right now, look at the Asian nation, they are fighting with the Africans. They are producing the clothes. It is oversaturated. Labor riots flare up everywhere, from Cape Town to Greenland's icy mountains, and from Tokyo to Yorktown. You know? The communists make fuel of this class struggle, but the workers of other nations do not consider the black worker as one of their class. So it seems like to remain a race struggle so far as the black man is concerned. The black man seems to be on the parallel with one other group, that of the Jewish group. It appears that black man's salvation lies in adopting a policy mimicking what the Jew had to do. The Jew had has been through crushing mills of slavery 3 times and came out with his culture and his language intact. Yahweh disappointed him about the homeland, but on the promise of the power of self-reservation and affluence, Yahweh has made good. But even Yahweh gave a land right now. So when this lesson was prepared, Israel was not formed in 1948. Israel was formed, this current Israel is formed after 1948. So even now, we can say Yahweh even gave him that land. He promised them. The Ethiopian went into slavery with a language of his own and came out speaking polyglot of tongues, many tongues. The Hebrew woman went into slavery 3 times and came out with her chastity intact. The black woman went into slavery 1 time and came out with some what a harlot. Wow. Maybe it will take 2 more rounds to bring the Ethiopian back to its senses. Wow. I hope not. I hope we learn our lesson and get it together. Before, right now, like I told you last time, there's a war in Ethiopia. That war is between China and the United States, but Ethiopians are fighting. China is after the resources of the continent, and the United States and British and the European Union are saying, no, this thing is still ours. Those Africans are ours. So that's how the war is going on. So we don't get it together, we're going to go back to slavery again. We're already in economic slavery. We depend on them too. Period. Culture and economy go hand in hand. The black man needs a black culture. Culture is an unstemmable words to a people. Obviously, speaking a language of his own or following culture of his own would not in itself guarantee the black man his bread. But culture is the storehouse in which a nation keeps their cerebral powers. In a crisis, it is to them a source of tremendous energy, without which, in crisis, their utter destruction is inevitable. That's how much culture is so important to us. To worship our ancestors gives us that strength in times of ancestor worship. That new culture that was introduced is so important as a race. So important to us. This Fahani is so important for because we are in crisis. Whether in America, in Europe, South America, Africa, wherever we go, we are in a crisis. Okay? And our utter destruction is inevitable. And they are plotting our destruction daily. That is why we hear so much about the English-speaking Union, the German culture, Soviet Union, Arabic-speaking Union. A culture should teach him to be his own processor of the necessities of life. But take a look at the diverse groups of blacks residing thousands of miles apart and in many different countries with nothing in common between them and being segregated, ignored, beaten, and secretly hated, despite the fact that each of them is trying to apex his respective master, trying to follow his master's culture, trying to be a good citizen. Look again and you see the racial crazy quote of the ages. The black man is trying to be a Frenchman, an Englishman, a German, a Spaniard, an American. All these patches and not a single thread to hold. Yes, he will understand this better by and by. Okay? We'll get it. When we will get it. It's just a matter of when we get it, True. The Africans in America are trying to be the best American citizen possible. The Africans in Mexico are trying to be the best Mexican possible. In French, the black French are saying we are French, and they are trying to be follow their masters. In England, they say we are British, you know, and they are doing their best to become a British citizen. All right? But who said he will understand this by and by. They understand little at the present. Their idea of being a good citizen starts with only keeping out of the clutches of the law. His idea of instinctive wars simply goes out by the board. He is less self-sufficient than any other group. True. I was even talking to High Priestess Kamara too. She was saying, she said, Cheikh, the white man here, he owns us. You know? I was like, whoa. She said, he owns us. We depend on him. Everything, clothes, shelter, and food, he owns us. He made us, he created us, he said. I was like, wow. That's powerful. Another seeming inherent truth of his race is that he lives more in the rare garb of his woman folk than do most men. In other words, the black man's mother does not seem able to transmit her powers to her sons as readily as to her daughters. Hence, a lack of racial ballast and sustained power. This ability of transmitting her power was once practiced by black mothers as the black art. Teaching the baby in the womb, preparing that child from the womb. We have practiced that, but now we lost it. But it is now lost to them. So the Holy Family brought that science to us, you know, and we still have yet to implement it and teach our women how to create gods and goddesses and warriors in the womb. The black man's past was ruled by queens as often as by kings. And equality of the sexes has always been an institution among blacks, and that's true. And finally, cooperation, the greatest asset of any people, is a thing quite unknown amongst blacks. He has produced in America many noble souls, male and female, but they have worn themselves away against the grindstone of black apathy, ignorance, and indifference. He now believes nothing for himself. The vagabond and infidel is still at his age-old game of hang on and wait. They have an astonishing amount of envy, jealousy, and secret resentment toward one another. And it's the truth. This they deny, but this everybody knows. He practically hates himself. Whom would the gods destroy? They first to make them mad. Is the black man mad? Question mark. Are we mad? And this is what he says. Listen to this. He says, just so long as the black man hankers to be a white man, will he be a vagabond among nations? Question mark. Nowadays, we are trying to be the Chinese man. We want to be like them. You know, we are envious even the Chinese man. Not only the European man. We are. In the names of their various gods, the nations of the earth have been browbeaten and thrashing the black man for ages. And if this has not taught him anything, what will? Okay. So with that, finally think about it, listen to this again and again, and what will teach us, what makes us, so we can come and love again, and come together again, and remember who they are, who we are, you know.
Exactly.
Alright, so with that, I say thank you so much, and again, I give thanks to Priestess Kamara and her father, Cheikh Ibn Hasin, for preserving and preparing this lesson for us. With that, I would like to say, Basalam Yastrak Banna.